So giving as able was within limits. Leviticus 1 verse 10, and if his offering be of the flocks, namely of the sheep or of the goats or of a burnt sacrifice, he shall bring it a male without blemish. Verse 14, and if the burnt sacrifice for his offering of the Lord be fowls, then he shall bring his offering of turtle doves or of young pigeons. So even the poor give of the tithe based upon what they had. So this is for everybody. No one says to say, well, you know what, I am poor and I'm of receiving from the welfare department, I can't give my tithe. No, you can't. God, if God can't trust you with the little bit he gave you, how can you expect him to trust you with the multitude of money he has waiting for you? You have to first prove that you can be trusted with the little bit you have before you can receive more. 3 times a year shall all thy meals appear before the Lord thy God in the place which he shall choose, in the feast of unleavened bread and in the feast of weeks and in the feast of tabernacles, and they shall not appear for the Lord empty. Okay, so even though we have the second tithe being utilized on themselves, they were not supposed to appear empty. And every man shall give as he is able, according to the blessing of the Lord thy God which he shall give to thee. So we have the offerings there. Charity, also known as free will offerings, any other benevolent use you are inspired to help. Benevolent definition characterized by or expressing goodwill or kindly feelings. Ezra 1 verse 4. And whosoever remaineth in any place where he sojourneth, let the men of his place help him with silver and with gold and with good goods and with beasts, beside the free will offering for the house of the God that is in Jerusalem. So yes, you have the free will offering going to the house of God, but still, if your God is saying what you should do, you should also have a little extra set aside for any specific need. If someone comes and it's something that is out of the blue that was not planned for, God is saying, hey, at least have something there to give them if you can. And guess what? You will be blessed. All right. So that is where we find the thought of charity. Free will offerings that are outside of the free will offering for the house of God. So the free will offering, the purpose of that is for the sustenance of the place of worship. And we can go more into that, but we'll do a deeper explanation of how those are supposed to be used in our next presentation. All right, so the total. Then there shall be a place which the Lord your God shall choose to cause his name to dwell there. Thither shall ye bring all that I command you, your burnt offerings and your sacrifices, your tithes and your heap offerings of your hand, and all your choice vows which ye vow unto the Lord. And this is taken from Pages and Prophets, 527.1. The contributions. Let's count so far. We said 10%, right? Plus 7%, plus 3, 7 and 3 is 10. 5% would be offerings, right? So we'll go there shortly. The contributions required of the Hebrews for religious and charitable purposes amounted to fully 1/4 of their income. And that is the requirement. So in other words, that they were not expected to give any less than this. But we have come up with the tradition, boy, let's give God 1/10. Hallelujah. Are we feeling good? Are we wondering, why are we only getting the trickle of God's blessing? Because it isn't the full thing. It's time for us to turn on the tap and receive the full blessing. So the requirement for the full blessing, which shows at this point, I had trust God completely with all that I have. That requirement was 1/4 of their income. And when I first heard that, I was like, no way, man, I can't do this. But then I heard my brother Christian Leach said, Christopher, I tried this thing and boy, God blessing me in some mysterious ways. I was like, really? And he went through how this man, his boss, said, Christian, I like your spirit. Here, take my BMW and park it at your front door. I was like, what? I'm like, all right, if God could work for Christian, God could work for me too. And that is what I did. And you know what? You always have to go through a test first. And even Job Just because you may find yourself going through a test when things are not going according to your will, don't say, okay, I ain't getting nothing now. God ain't blessing me, so I'm done with God. No. Job held on. And God was able to say, though, my good and faithful servant. And everything he lost, he got back. Elijah was happily sitting at the river, at the brook. The brook dried up. But guess what? Because he trusted in God, God was able to find someone to sustain him. And because that person listened, the person was not part of the camp, but that person listened and that person was blessed. Will God's people listen today? The requirement is 1/4, 25%, not 10% of their income. So heavy attacks upon the resources of the people might be expected to reduce them to poverty. And that's why I said to myself, boy, if I do that, I can be broke. I'll be broken. I'll be broke. I'll have no money. But God says, but that's what people expected to happen to the Jews. But who is the richest nation? The Jews are the richest nation in the world. So it was expected to reduce them to poverty. But on the contrary, the faithful observance of these regulations was one of the conditions of their prosperity. And all the nations shall call you blessed, for ye shall be a delightsome land, said the Lord of hosts. Do you want to be blessed? So let's see 1/4. If 10% was first tithe and 10% was second tithe, 10% is what? 20%. So the next 5% will have to be offering. What with the charity, the extra 5%? A conscientious few made returns to God about 1/3 of all their income for the benefit of religious interests and for the poor. No less than 1/3 of their income was devoted to sacred and religious purposes. That's approximately 30% rounded. So if 30% rounded would be the extra, the extra 5% would be charity. And what some people do then would be 10, 10, 10. 10 for the Levites, 7 and 3, 7 for camp, 3 for the poor. And then a conscientious few say, you know what, God gave me so good, I'll give back even more to him. And they set aside 5% for charity to help some other cause of their own desire. With all of this, there can't be no welfare issues in God's house. But you know, when we don't fully follow the system, then we start having to pull here, pull there, having to scratch our heads. How are we gonna help this person or help that person? Does God do that? God owns all the cattle of 1,000 hills, and he has one for me and one for you too. God has everybody in his hands. But the problem is we like to jump out of God's hands. Let us change.